disrupting the game's tempo, FIFA's advertising greed, and managers weaponizing this time for tactical talks that turn matches upside down. A storm has erupted around the hydration break introduced at the World Cup in the USA, Mexico, and Canada because, according to many, this single pause could literally decide the entire tournament. At first glance, a sip of water doesn't look like a revolution on the scale of VAR or the introduction of the offside rule back in 1863. Today, however, we are breaking down the hydration break to show you the true scale of its impact. Before we start analyzing the hidden tactical advantages this break gives to teams, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Let's get into it. To understand how this revolution came to be, one must first look at the hosts of the tournament. In American sports, the concept of a hydration break is nothing new. It is deeply embedded in their sports culture. NFL or NBA games practically rely on frequent pauses, tactical timeouts, and commercial breaks. In the sports culture of the current World Cup hosts, regularly stopping the clock is completely normal. Traditional football, however, has always been different. It has always been a continuous 45-minute battle of endurance. So how did FIFA justify breaking this sacred tradition? Official reasons focus primarily on the health and safety of the players. The 2026 World Cup is being played during the scorching summer months. In cities like Miami, Houston, or Monterey, temperatures regularly exceed 35 degrees Celsius alongside brutal humidity. Covering a distance of 10 to 12 kilometers in such conditions without proper hydration carries a massive risk of heat stroke. From a medical standpoint, these breaks are an absolute plus. They protect player health, reduce the risk of muscular injuries, and guarantee that the stars on the pitch can perform at the highest level instead of collapsing from exhaustion. However, the approach to this issue has changed drastically. During the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, the so-called cooling breaks were merely an emergency option, triggered by referees solely during extreme heat waves. At the World Cup in the USA, Mexico, and Canada, FIFA went a step further. The rule was fully standardized and written into the tournament regulations as a rigid policy. The hydration break takes place by default in each half of every single match, regardless of whether the game is played under a roof, in an air-conditioned venue, or on a cooler evening. On paper, it is a modern health initiative tailored to the realities of a massive tournament. Yet, the moment the official break became a permanent, mandatory element of every single match, FIFA's true intentions began to raise doubts. If FIFA's only goal here was player safety, the rules would look completely different. Logic dictates that you'd only stop the game during extreme heat waves, giving players maybe 60 seconds for a quick sip of water. Instead, we got a rigid, 3-minute ritual. It happens in every single half, no matter what, even if it's pouring rain outside or the game is being played under a closed roof in a fully climate-controlled stadium. So, why exactly 3 minutes? Because in the world of commercial television, 3 minutes is the absolute sweet spot to squeeze in a full, unskippable ad break. To see what's really going on, you just have to look at FIFA's track record over the last few years. Expanding the World Cup to a massive 48-team format, pushing for a tournament every 2 years, or launching a giant club World Cup, every single one of these moves was driven by one thing: maximizing cash. In this context, the mandatory hydration break isn't a medical breakthrough, it's a brilliant business product. FIFA is playing it smart by cashing in indirectly. By locking a mandatory 3-minute pause into the official rules, they essentially created a goldmine for TV networks. It gave them a premium advertising slot right in the middle of live football action, something that never existed before. This allowed FIFA to demand absolute record-breaking numbers during media rights negotiations. TV networks willingly paid those because they knew they could win that money right back. Take the American broadcast giant, Fox Sports, as the perfect example. For US networks, traditional football has always been a tough business model. 45 straight minutes without a commercial means millions of dollars left on the table. The hydration break completely changed the game. Industry estimates show that depending on the match, a commercial broadcaster can rake in anywhere from $1 million to $1.8 million for just a single 3-minute break. By selling 30-second ad slots for up to $300,000 and even more when the U.S. national team plays, Fox is projected to clear well over $250 million over the course of the tournament. That means these tiny water breaks alone will cover more than half the entire cost of what Fox paid for the broadcast rights. What was officially marketed as a noble initiative to protect player health has quietly become one of the most profitable commercial timeouts in the history of sports. Commercialization is one thing, but this change brutally interferes with the game itself. For anyone who loves traditional football, the biggest sin of the hydration break is how ruthlessly it kills a team's momentum. When a team catches fire, pins their opponent in their own box, and creates chance after chance, the referee's sudden whistle completely destroys that hard-earned advantage. Statistical analyses reveal a brutal pattern. In over 65% of cases, the hydration break completely disrupts the rhythm of the team that currently holds full momentum. For the viewer at home, this shift is physically palpable suddenly in a split second. The adrenaline drops, players cool down, and that high intensity is just gone. FIFA claims all this lost time is given back through massive stoppage time, but the stats are ruthless. Official reports, including data from the Seas Football Observatory, show that average effective playing time doesn't ultimately suffer that much, mostly due to new strict time limits on substitutions and throw-ins. The other consequences are fatal. What we are ultimately getting is a drastically lower flow, longer broadcasts, more commercials, and at the end of the day, just less uninterrupted, real football. However, this fragmented flow has opened the door to something that completely alters the spirit of the game. The hydration break has turned into an unofficial tactical timeout. At 2026 World Cup, this has become a tactical reality. The perfect example, Brazil versus Morocco. The Moroccans dominated the midfield, led 1-0, and looked bound to score another. Brazil was completely rattled. Then, in the 22nd minute, the referee called for a hydration break. Carlo Ancelotti immediately treated it like a free NBA-style timeout. He gathered the team, pulled out the tactical board, and quickly patched up the holes in their pressing. 3 minutes later, two completely different teams walked back out. Morocco's momentum was brutally slaughtered, while a revamped Brazil took control and equalized just 6 minutes later. After the match, Ancelotti admitted the break was a lifesaver. Regulations meant to protect player health have instead become a powerful tactical weapon for elite managers. UEFA showed that there is a completely different way to approach this. The governing body proves that a hydration break doesn't have to be a soulless cash grab, and that you can easily balance player health with respect for football's traditions. Instead of blindly copying FIFA's marketing blueprint, UEFA introduced water breaks under much smarter rules. They deserve serious credit for this. The devil is in the details. UEFA completely removed the forced automation seen at the World Cup. The break doesn't just happen by default. A medical delegate decides whether to call it based on the WBGT index, which measures real heat stress. If a match is played in the evening, in the shade, or the temperature stays below 32 degrees Celsius, the game just flows without interruptions. Crucially, UEFA's break lasts exactly 90 seconds from the whistle to the restart. That is just enough time for a quick sip of water, not TV commercials. Most importantly, UEFA stops managers from using this pause as an NBA-style timeout. Bringing tactical boards onto the pitch is strictly banned, and the time limit is so tight that coaches have no room to restructure their team's game plan. This window is strictly for recovery. All of this brings the hydration break back to its roots. It becomes what it was always meant to be, a necessary pause for player health, where human safety comes first, not ad revenue. Is it possible to completely preserve the traditional structure of a football match while fully protecting player health? As it turns out, yes, and a perfect solution has already been put to the test in various youth tournaments. The idea is brilliant in its simplicity. When a hydration break is called, players are strictly forbidden from leaving their positions on the pitch and walking over to the technical areas. Instead, team staff members quickly run onto the field to deliver water and hydration directly to the players. The benefits of this setup for the flow of the game are massive. First and foremost, it drastically shortens the duration of the stoppage. Players do not waste valuable seconds walking back and forth to the benches. They get a quick sip of water almost instantly, allowing the referee to restart the game within seconds. Most importantly, however, this system completely eliminates the opportunity for any tactical consultations. With players scattered across the entire pitch and staff only having enough time to hand over bottles, managers lose any chance to gather the team around a tactical board and alter formations. This format ensures that the hydration break remains exactly what it was always meant to be, a purely medical safety procedure that respects the true spirit of the game, without turning traditional football into a fragmented commercial sport. Looking at the bigger picture, there is no doubt that the hydration break is the biggest, yet most silent controversy of this World Cup. What seems like an innocent pause for a sip of water actually strikes at the very core of modern football. As we have seen, these brief moments have a massive impact on match results and, consequently, on the entire tournament, artificially killing the momentum of teams on fire, bailing out struggling defenses, and handing managers free tactical timeouts directly dictates who goes home and who lifts the trophy. However, the modifications introduced by UEFA and the brilliant blueprint from youth tournaments prove that this procedure has the potential to be highly beneficial for the sport. By strictly limiting the duration, utilizing precise weather criteria, and forcing players to stay in their positions, we could achieve the perfect balance protecting player health without ruining the flow of the game. Unfortunately, in its current World Cup format, the hydration break is simply damaging to the spectacle. So, what are the chances of these smart rules being permanently adopted into FIFA's official protocol? Given the massive revenue generated by additional commercial blocks and FIFA's historical reluctance to change, a revolution won't happen overnight. Nevertheless, growing pressure from fans, media, and national associations might eventually force a compromise. Football naturally rejects artificial disruption, and sooner or later, tradition will have to triumph over pure business. But what do you guys think? Do these water breaks ruin your enjoyment of the match, or do you see them as an absolute necessity? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to read your opinions. If this video gave you a new perspective on the hidden side of World Cup pauses, please drop a like and hit that subscribe button with the notification bell so you don't miss our next tactical breakdowns. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.